open the gate.
Tonight, dramatic video captured by TMZ showing the tense moments LAPD officers arrested singer David on suspicion of murdering a teenage girl who had been found dead in the trunk of his car.
If you try to run or you try to resist, you will get hit with my feet or it's gonna hurt. I got you.
In footage obtained by the California Post, officers in tactical gear are seen walking him in handcuffs yesterday on the streets of the Hollywood Hills.
But as you take a look from News Chopper 4 overhead, you can see that they are leaving with evidence boxes, evidence collected from inside of the house. Now, you mentioned that the LAPD has been looking into David for some time.
They told the judge there are terabytes of material, and some of it allegedly contains child sexual abuse imagery, what we would call child pornography, which prosecutors said cannot just be handed over to defense lawyers. They said there are still sealed grand jury transcripts, records of wiretaps and search warrants. All of this will take many days, if not longer, to prepare and provide to defense attorneys. Yesterday, the LA County Medical Examiner published its own report on Rivas-Hernandez's death. The coroner concluded she died of 2 sharp, penetrating wounds to her chest, and the rest of the report detailed the dismemberment and decomposition of her body. She was found last September in a Tesla sedan registered to Burke after that car was impounded from a street in the Hollywood Hills close to a home that Burke had been renting.
A body, not just a body, a 14-year-old girl, dismembered, sealed inside a black body bag, stuffed into the front trunk of a Tesla, found rotting in a Hollywood tow yard on a Monday morning in September 2025. Her name was Celeste Rivas-Hernandez. And the man accused of putting her there? He wasn't some unknown criminal hiding in the shadows. He was a TikTok star, a chart-topping artist, a rising pop sensation known to millions of fans by a single name. D4VD, born David Anthony Burke, 21 years old, followed by millions, admired, beloved. And now sitting in a Los Angeles jail cell charged with first-degree murder. But here's where this story takes a turn that even the most seasoned true crime followers weren't prepared for. For months, the autopsy report on Celeste was sealed, locked away, hidden from the public, from the press, and most painfully from her grieving family. But they buried their daughter without ever being officially told what had been done to her. Until now. Today we are going through that autopsy report in full. Every finding, every wound, every detail the medical examiner documented after examining what was left of a 14-year-old girl. And we are asking the questions that matter about justice, about evidence, about the system, and about what this case reveals that goes far beyond one killing. Stay with us. This is RedRage Crime TV, and this is the D4VD case. To understand the weight of this case, you first have to understand who David Burke was before the arrest. He rose to fame as D4VD, a self-taught bedroom musician from Houston, Texas, who taught himself to produce music on a laptop, uploaded songs to TikTok, and virtually overnight became one of the most buzzed about artists of his generation. His breakout single, Here With Me, amassed tens of millions of streams. He signed with major labels. He toured. He had fans worldwide who saw him as a symbol of raw, authentic artistry. He's 21 years old at the time of his arrest. Celeste Rivas-Hernandez was 14. She was from Lake Elsinore, California, a quiet inland community about an hour southeast of Los Angeles. She disappeared in the spring of 2025. According to prosecutors, Celeste died on April 23, 2025. She would have turned 15 on September 7th. Her dismembered remains were discovered the very next day, September 8th, stuffed inside a black body bag and trash bag in the front trunk of a Tesla sedan registered to David Burke. The car had been impounded from a street in the Hollywood Hills, not far from a home Burke had been renting for roughly $15,000 a month. Think about that timeline. She allegedly died in late April. Prosecutors believe her body was dismembered in early May, approximately 2 weeks after her death, and her remains sat, decomposing, undiscovered for more than 4 months until that Tesla was towed. Here's the question that should sit with you. How does a 14-year-old girl from Lake Elsinore end up dead in the trunk of a rising pop star's car in Hollywood? What was their connection? And what happened in those final hours of her life? Those answers are still emerging, but what we do know begins with the autopsy. Celeste's remains were discovered on September 8, 2025, but David Burke was not arrested that day. Not the next day, not that week, not that month. For 7 months, LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division worked the case, building evidence, conducting wiretaps, appearing before a grand jury, issuing search warrants. Burke, meanwhile, was a free man. Reports emerged that he was believed to be staying with family in Texas. Investigators kept tabs on him. Then in April 2026, a Thursday afternoon at 4:30 p.m., LAPD moved. LAPD Captain Scott Williams of the Robbery Homicide Division confirmed that officers arrived at a home on Marmont Avenue in the Hollywood Hills, just above the famous Chateau Marmont Hotel, armed with a probable cause arrest warrant. They found Burke inside. He was taken into custody without incident. According to investigators, he hadn't fled to Texas after all. He had been living right there in Hollywood in a home leased at approximately $15,000 per month. A for lease sign was reportedly posted on the property, suggesting he may have been preparing to vacate.
It's going to obscure my view from the gate.
If you try to run or if you try to resist, you will get hit with my feet door. It's gonna hurt.
I got you.
If you try to run, we have canine on premises and you will get bit.
I got you. All right, so the gate is locked. You want to open the gate? Sir, open the gate.
Tonight in Los Angeles, the dramatic images: a well-known singer arrested in connection with the murder of a 14-year-old girl found dead in the trunk of his car. Video tonight showing the tense moments as he was taken into custody, and authorities on how long that victim was in the trunk. Here's Trevor Ault.
Open the gate.
Tonight, dramatic video captured by TMZ showing the tense moments LAPD officers arrested singer David on suspicion of murdering a teenage girl who had been found dead in the trunk of his car.
If you try to run or if you try to resist, you will get hit with my feet door. It's gonna hurt.
I got you.
In footage obtained by the California Post, officers in tactical gear are seen walking him in handcuffs yesterday on the streets of the Hollywood Hills. The arrest comes 7 months after officers made that grim discovery at an impound lot. The body of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas found inside the front trunk of a Tesla registered to David Burke. The 21-year-old performs under the name David with tens of millions of monthly Spotify listeners. He's now being held without bail. Senior officials tell ABC News the LAPD has spent months compiling evidence. Rivas had been missing for more than a year. Police say she'd likely been dead for weeks before they found her body. Sources connected to the investigation say the medical examiner determined her cause of death to be homicide. Tonight, David's attorneys say in a statement, the actual evidence in this case will show that David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas-Hernandez, and he was not the cause of her death.
As officers left the scene that evening with boxes of evidence, Burke's defense attorneys issued a statement. Let me read part of it to you directly. Let us be clear. The actual evidence in this case will show that David did not murder Celeste Rivas-Hernandez, and he was not the cause of her death. David has only been detained under suspicion. We will vigorously defend David's innocence. Burke was held without bail over the weekend and faced a judge the following Monday. He was arraigned and pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder charges with special circumstances. And here's where it gets legally significant. Those special circumstances include lying in wait, financial gain, that Celeste was allegedly a witness to a crime. These aren't just labels. In California, special circumstances can make the difference between a life sentence and something far more severe. The prosecution is playing for keeps. Now we come to the document that has been at the center of this case since the day Celeste's body was found, the autopsy report. The Los Angeles County Department of Medical Examiner examined Celeste's remains on September 10, 2025, 2 days after she was found, but the cause and manner of death were not officially determined until December 9, 2025. And then, the report was locked away under court order initiated by the LAPD. Police and prosecutors argued that releasing the findings could contaminate the testimony of witnesses who had appeared before a grand jury. Her family waited. The public waited. Months passed. It wasn't until April 2026, after the arraignment, that a judge ordered the medical examiner to make the report public. And when it was finally released, the chief medical examiner of Los Angeles County, Dr. Odi Upo, issued a striking statement. She said she was grateful the information could at last be released, not only to the public, but to the grieving family, enduring loss. She called it unfathomable that they had waited this long to learn what happened to their daughter. Now let's talk about what that report actually says. The official cause of death: multiple penetrating injuries caused by objects. The manner of death: homicide. The report describes 2 specific penetrating wounds to Celeste's torso. One entered the right abdomen and penetrated the liver, an organ that, when punctured, causes catastrophic internal bleeding. The second entered the lower left chest, penetrated the intercostal space, that's the area between the ribs, and entered the chest cavity. Both wounds had smooth edges, which the medical examiner noted may represent sharp force injuries, a blade, a knife, something designed to cut. And then there's the dismemberment. Both of her arms were severed, the right arm 9 inches from the shoulder, the left arm 5 inches from the shoulder. Her left 4th and 5th fingers were also amputated. Both legs were severed in 2 places, each cut through at multiple points to compact the body. The cuts went through soft tissue and bone, and the report noted the cut surfaces were relatively flat, meaning whatever tool was used was applied with deliberate force. Fragments of blue plastic material were found embedded in the cut surfaces. They were collected as evidence. The report also notes there was no discernible hemorrhage at the dismemberment sites, meaning, in the medical examiner's analysis, these cuts were made after death. She was killed first, then dismembered. Her body was in an advanced state of decomposition. Partial skeletonization of the head, liquefaction of soft tissues, insect activity. The medical examiner noted that the severe post-mortem changes made certain determinations impossible, including eye color, and whether there was sexual trauma. The state of decomposition had simply destroyed too much. Post-mortem toxicology was conducted on liver tissue. A presumptive positive for methamphetamine and MDMA was followed by a confirmatory test. Meth was inconclusive. MDMA was not detected. A low level of ethanol was found, but the report notes this may have formed naturally through the decomposition process and was not contributory to death. At 71 pounds recorded weight, accounting for massive tissue loss from decomposition, what remained of Celeste Rivas-Hernandez told a forensic story. A story of 2 fatal wounds, methodical dismemberment, and a body hidden and abandoned. Let me step back for a moment and offer some observations, not conclusions, but the kinds of questions a critical thinker should be sitting with. First, the dismemberment. The medical examiner's report tells us cuts were not made at the joints, which would be the anatomically logical place if someone knew what they were doing. Instead, limbs were cut in multiple places, seemingly to fit the body into a confined space. Forensic experts have described this as consistent with someone trying to compact a body for concealment, not someone with surgical knowledge or prior experience. Does that make it less premeditated? Not necessarily. It may simply tell us about the perpetrator's background and state of mind at the time. Second, the blue plastic fragments embedded in the cut surfaces. Investigators collected these. That detail is not accidental. It means whatever tool was used left a traceable signature. If that tool is ever found, it could be decisive evidence. Third, the timeline. If Celeste died April 23rd and wasn't discovered until September 8th, that is roughly 4.5 months of that body being somewhere. And for at least part of that time, it may have been in that Tesla. Think about what that means logistically. Someone knew. Someone had access to that car. Someone made the decision, repeatedly, not to act. Fourth, and perhaps most haunting, the autopsy could not determine whether Celeste had experienced sexual trauma, because decomposition had destroyed the evidence. In cases like this, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It simply means we may never know the full extent of what she endured. This case is not just about one man and one murder. It raises deeper questions about how predators can hide behind fame and relatability, about how legal seals on autopsy reports can delay closure for families, and about what it says about our culture when a man with apparent access to child abuse imagery is celebrated before anyone asks the right questions. Celeste Rivas-Hernandez deserves to turn 15. She deserved a future. And she deserved justice that moved at the speed her family needed, not the speed that was convenient for an investigation. We will continue to follow this case every step of the way, from the preliminary hearing to trial, through every piece of evidence that comes to light. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it made you angry in the way that matters, then subscribe to RedRage Crime TV and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Hit the notification bell, share this video, leave a comment, because the only way stories like Celeste's stay alive in the public consciousness is if we refuse to let them fade. We are RedRage Crime TV. We don't look away. See you next time.
NBC4 Investigates is continuing to follow developments in the case against the singer David, arrested last week, charged and pleading not guilty to the murder of an Inland Empire teenager. Today, prosecutors in court presented new disturbing evidence regarding child pornography. David Anthony Burke appeared in court in an orange jumpsuit, described as stoic, slumped in a chair, looking directly at the judge and mumbling the single word, "yeah," when asked if he agreed to a specific date. This is the second appearance in court this week for the singer known as David, seen here on Monday when he was arraigned in downtown LA for the murder of Celeste Rivas-Hernandez. That day, her family was in court. Today, they were not, when prosecutors revealed the 21-year-old accused of killing their 14-year-old daughter possessed a, quote, significant amount of child sex abuse images on an iCloud account that belonged to him. Citing the sensitivity of the images involving children, a judge denying cameras in court as the proceedings continue. David has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys, who vowed to, quote, vigorously defend his innocence, seen leaving court today after asking for a preliminary hearing when a judge will decide if there's enough evidence to move forward with the trial, to be held within the next week.
Usually the defense likes to put things off, gives them more time to prepare. But sometimes, as in this case, I think the defense attitude is, all right, you think you got our guy, bring it on.
For now, David, held without bail, remaining behind bars. The Lake Elsinore family of Celeste Rivas, according to their attorney, are in, quote, profound emotional pain after autopsy findings left them devastated by the, quote, horrible and gruesome death of their daughter by sharp force injuries exactly 1 year ago today. Her dismembered body not found until September 7th of last year inside a Tesla registered to David Anthony Burke. The discovery made the day after what would have been Celeste's 15th birthday. The preliminary hearing is now scheduled for May 1st.